we can go ahead and get this started. Good afternoon. Hello everyone and welcome to a live stream. Let me just turn this music off. I'm kind of liking it though. Nice little pop. I wasn't sure what it got off to kind of a rough start, but it got going nicely too. So great. Well, welcome. Good afternoon. This is a live stream for DGST 101, Intro to Digital Studies at the University of Mary Washington, and I'm the professor for this class. My name is Zach Whalen, and here I am. So it's week 2, day 4 of our summer term, and it's hot today. A little less hot supposedly than yesterday, but it feels pretty rough out there if you have to go outside. It is supposed to rain later, which is going to be nice, so I'm looking forward to that. Although it was supposed to rain sooner, now it looks like it's going to rain this evening, which is still fine, but you know, it would have been nice to have a little bit more rain sooner than later, but we'll see. We'll be fine as we are. My garden needs some watering, so I'm kind of waiting. Should I water it or should I wait for the rain to water it? You know, I'd prefer the rain to water it, but I might have to just go out there with a hose. The garden is growing in very nicely though, so far this summer. Much better than I expected, really. We've already had cucumbers and and tomatoes, so I was very excited about that. Okay, so week 2, day 4. This is nearing the end of week 4, obviously. So this will actually be my last stream this week. So this is the last new set of content and ideas. But it's really just what I'm doing here is just building on what we've already got. So there's nothing out of left field coming today, I hope. But I hope today is useful because what I want to do today is really talk about your writing. You are working on these web literacy articles, and I have some advice. I've seen them. I've looked through most of them, maybe not all, but I've looked at most of them. And I see a lot of common mistakes, and I want to talk about some of those. And if you are willing, I would be interested in putting your article on screen here on my live stream, and then talking about and critiquing it a little bit. Now, I'm not going to do that unless you actually explicitly volunteer, but because I want to protect your privacy and everything. But if you do want to volunteer for that, and you're watching live right now, then that I think could be pretty useful. So just think about that for now, and then we'll get to that in a little bit. Okay, so Morning Paul is asking, would you rather have rain or snow? I mean, like right now, rain would be great. I think snow would be a little bit much to ask for. I gotta say, like as a homeowner and someone who therefore has to shovel the driveway, snow is not as much fun as it used to be, you know, when I was a kid. So I definitely like. I mean, rain in the summertime is nice, you know. Rain in the wintertime, no, it's not so good. But rain in the summertime, yeah, I'd rather, it's fine, it's nice. Okay, great, so I'm already seeing a couple of volunteers in Discord, that's good. So when we get to that portion, I'm gonna talk kind of in general first, and then when I get to that specific part, then I'll ask you to share the link to your article so I can pull it up here. And I think I've seen both of yours actually, Noah and Colin, so I might have some things to say about it, but we'll see. All right, so week 2, day 4, and here are your goals and tasks for today. You should be reviewing and commenting on other articles. So I want to really emphasize that because I've seen in looking through them that some of them do have lots of comments, some of them have none. So there's an opportunity for you to do this. I want you to engage with each other's writing, and I want you to give each other advice, right? So I'm going to be giving you some advice in this stream right now, this lecture. My hope is that you can learn from that and then apply it to help understand your own writing better, but also help apply these ideas to help other people's writing as well. Also, I think by looking at how other people have constructed their articles, I think you'll be inspired to follow certain things that they're doing well, and that would make your article better as well. So you should continually be working on your articles. I didn't look at who, but I saw a couple of people have already submitted this assignment in Canvas, but none of the articles that I've looked at so far were really ready to be submitted. So even if you have, so I don't know who that is, but you may still need to keep working on your article. You probably do, and you should feel free to. So just resubmit it in Canvas, and you know, I'll see the newest one, and that'll be fine. But really, what you're submitting in Canvas anyway isn't the article directly; it's the reflection on it. So you know, if you do make changes today, I want you to include those changes in your reflection. So if you've already submitted a reflection based on things that you did before today, it might not be complete, and you might need to go back and add some things. Okay, so that's, you know, hopefully that makes sense. These are the main things, is really working on your article and your module. So your module is something you're doing on your own, so hopefully that's going okay. I have seen a lot of chatter in the Discord channels for the different modules, so that's good. That seems to be the right thing. That seems to be what you need to be doing right now, so keep that up. Just because this is the end of the week, I thought it would be helpful to have this checklist basically to remind you of all the things that you have due today. And I've highlighted here the things that need to be submitted in Canvas. Some of the stuff you're going to be posting on your website, some of the things we'll be doing in the Google Docs. But for each of these assignments, there is a final thing that goes in Canvas. And for each of these, it's actually not the object itself that you've been working on necessarily, but a reflection about it, or your thoughts about it, or your summary of it. So these are the three things. For the web literacy assignment, you've been working on this article. I have seen them and I can find them, but you don't have to submit that directly in Canvas. Instead, please submit the blog post reflecting on what you've learned. So that's something separate from the article itself. It's a post reflecting on the learning process. All throughout this semester, I'm much more interested in process than product, and so I want you to show me your work. Tell me about your process, and that's what you should be submitting in Canvas. If you've already submitted something in Canvas and it was your article, that's not correct. So please resubmit with the web literacy reflection, not the article. For the digital culture module, remember it follows the same format as the previous one. And I want to emphasize one part of this, but it's the initial blog post. You should have some conversations in your Slack channel, your Discord channel, and ultimately post a video in Discord sharing what you learned. Now, some of you submitted those videos last week in Canvas, or you just sent it to me. That actually isn't correct. So these videos are not meant for me, really. I want you to do it, and I'm asking you to do it, but they're really meant for your peers. Like, you're not addressing me in these videos, you're addressing your classmates. And the main idea here is that some of you worked on animated GIFs, but you might have been interested in interactive fiction. So those of you who did interactive fiction, tell everyone what you did, and those who did a different module will learn from what you talk about in that. So it's a chance to share your work and talk about it to an audience of peers that did different projects. That's the main thing. So in some sense, you're kind of talking about, hopefully, like, what is interactive fiction and why did you choose it? And that will be educational for those students who did different modules. That's the idea. Okay, so that's the same idea again for this week. So if you did activism and agency, what is important to know about that, and what did your peers miss out on by doing something different instead? That would be one way to approach that, perhaps. But ultimately, again, what you turn in Canvas is that final blog post. And I really want to insist that these are two blog posts. There's an initial post, there's some work in the middle, and then there's a final blog post. Because I think coming at this module from two sides, even though we're doing this on a compressed timeline for the summer, I think is really important. And that is your chance to really show your process and your growth across these, it's a couple days, but I think you can learn a lot in a couple days. So I'm interested to see your process and how you get there. And you can do that more easily if you separate out those two posts, and especially if you write those on different days, right? So write that initial blog post on, now if you haven't yet, and then write the final one tomorrow or over the weekend even, right? If it needs to come in late, I would rather it be interesting and thorough than on time. So if you need a little bit more time, that's always okay with me. Okay, and then finally, this is the weekly reflection and report, and this is just the standard thing that's due every week. And this is, you'll notice, kind of similar to these other things, except you're reflecting on the whole week as a thing, right? And I have some advice about what things to include in all of these different reflections that I'll get to at the end of a few thoughts here. Okay, so this is some things to think about. All right, so as you think about your writing, I'm going to give you all a concept and invite you to think about your writing this way. And this is this concept of neutral point of view, POV standing for point of view. Oh, it just got cloudy all of a sudden. I wonder if there's a rain. That might be a rain cloud. I don't know. We'll see. So the way that you write your article should be a formal style. We're kind of modeling this after Snopes, which has a fairly, I would say, a rather objective journalistic style, but it is ultimately a journalistic style. But even more neutrally than that, I want you to think of and try to emulate the style of writing that you see in a Wikipedia article. And that is something that takes a lot of practice and work, and it's not as easy as you might think. It's easy to read, and so you see Wikipedia articles all the time, and you might think, well, anybody can do this. But actually trying to craft it yourself turns out to be really hard. You do a lot more work on the kind of writer side so that the reader doesn't have to do as much work, if that makes sense. So that's the global kind of big idea. And I think there are specific strategies that can get you there. And I have a few specific ideas on the next few slides that I think might help you think about these things. So one thing to do is think about this as a document for the web, right? So you're trying to write this in a way that can be skimmed and not like a deep, engaged prose, document. So one thing that we'd like to do on the web is we don't indent paragraphs. So think about, like, let's just try a few things, right? So taking a look at Wikipedia. Let's do the random article thing on Wikipedia. This is kind of fun. All right, so Michael Perry, who's a hymn writer. So take a look at these paragraphs. Not indented, right? These are all left justified. I've seen quite a few articles of yours that are coming in that are indented, and they really shouldn't be. I mean, it's a Google Doc. You might think of it as kind of like a Word document or a print document, but it really isn't. It's a web document. So left indent, that's the convention online, and that's what I really recommend you do. I really think you should do that. Similarly, oh wait, no. Well, this is, I put these in a slightly different order than I meant to, but similarly, avoid long paragraphs. So if you look at this, I mean, this is like, I don't know anything about this person, but this looks like a pretty typical Wikipedia article. And if you notice, the paragraphs are 3-4 lines long at the most. And that's really what you generally want for web writing, is you want to get to the point very quickly. And also, by writing short paragraphs and putting your most important ideas at the beginning of each of those paragraphs, it makes it easier for you to skim down the page and see what's going on there. Okay. Related to skimming, and I have to go back for this one apparently, I saw a few articles where you have changed out the headings that I created, and you've tried to do different things with the layout of the document. I understand you're wanting to try to flex the template or trying to be creative, but please don't. I really want these to be consistent. It helps me assess them, but also, even though practically speaking, I'm probably not going to take these to this step, this assignment is something that when we have a longer time to develop these and work on them, I usually do end up publishing them all together as a kind of fact-checking anthology, basically. So I want these to be written in a way that's consistent across articles as much as possible. And that's what the neutral point of view accomplishes, among other things. But having those headings and making them consistent makes it easy for your peers, especially, to review your articles as they see them. So please use my headings. If you need to add additional headings or subheadings within those, that's fine, but use at least those basic ones there. Okay, so I will, and I think, I forget whose was which, but Colin or Noah, I might have had some suggestions along those lines in yours. Okay, this is a big one. Avoid first-person pronouns. Really, you should never use a first-person pronoun in an article like this unless it's a direct quote of someone saying it. Now, I'm not usually against first-person pronouns in research papers or like persuasive papers or analysis papers or things like that, but that's not what you're trying to do here. You're trying to write in a formal, neutral, objective way, and in formal writing, you really do want to avoid first-person pronouns. So this is, what you're trying to tell me in this article is the truth, not what you did. So when you're using first person, you implicitly sort of make yourself a character. You make yourself a point of view. You become part of the story, but that's not what we want to do here. We just want truth. We don't care who you are. I mean, I personally care who you are, but as a reader of your article, we want to address the reader who doesn't know who you are and doesn't care, but they just want to know, is it true or not? And that's what they need to see. They don't need to see your journey to how you got to know whether or not it's true, right? I mean, I am interested in that. That's where you, the kind of thing you would put in your reflection, but the article itself should get straight to the point and very neutrally and objectively as possible tell the truth. And one way to avoid that, or avoid the opposite of that, I guess, is to really try not to use first-person pronouns, certainly not second-person pronouns either. So really avoiding pronouns as much as possible, avoiding personal pronouns as much as possible is probably the way to go, or another way to put that. Okay, related to that, one thing, and this is one reason why writing instructors all along maybe have told you advice similar to this. If you avoid first person, you avoid falling into certain bad habits of writing, where you say certain things like, in my opinion, or as best as I can tell, or anything like this, because these are little phrases that don't actually add anything to the sentence. They don't add any useful information to the claim you're making or the statement you're making. All they do is undermine it. They just weaken whatever statement. They qualify it. So they're saying, it's a way of saying, well, this is the truth, but it's just my opinion. I don't know. So it's a way that you're not being confident in what you're saying. And that's what it comes across as for your reader. So avoid this kind of phrase, but you will automatically avoid and really find yourself deleting these kinds of phrases if you avoid first person references. So when you say here my opinion, if you know that you're not allowed to use the word my, then you'll see this phrase hopefully and take it out. Right? So you want to avoid that kind of qualified writing. It definitely does weaken your writing. Not just in this context, but really in any other context. It's a really, sometimes you do need to qualify a statement as an opinion, but we're not interested in opinions for this kind of writing. We're interested in facts. Okay. Similarly, you might want to say you don't want to tell me about the journey that you took in order to answer these questions. And I saw a few phrases along these lines, like I found many examples of this claim. I don't want to know that you found those examples. I want to know what the examples are. So show me the examples and show me the best ones, or a typical one, or several, and that's all you need to do. State it very simply, right? Here's an example of this claim on Twitter. Screenshot. That's all you need. All right, so keep it short, keep it straightforward. Okay, so I thought the Wikipedia article about this had a pretty good kind of, explanation of the philosophy behind what they insist on. And, if you're interested in editing Wikipedia, which that is one of the digital culture modules, but I don't think anyone chose it, which is, it's fine, of course. But editing for Wikipedia turns out to be a pretty intense process, I found. I did a lot of that this spring with one of my classes, and I found it much more challenging than I thought it would be. But they have really extensive documentation explaining what you should be doing as you write these articles. And this is really helpful, especially when you get into an argument with another Wikipedia editor, or you're trying to understand what their concerns are about your article. So which is what we ended up running into. So this bit here about pronouns, and I lost no, this is not the page with the pronouns. This is just for further reading. This is kind of the generic, like the big overview information, and then there are specific articles about individual aspects of this. But the bit about pronouns here is, you really want to avoid this. And I like the way they put that. These are, when you use first and second person, then it evokes what they call a strong narrator. And I think that's a good phrase. And that's what you're trying to avoid. I mean, you're not a strong narrator here. You shouldn't be. You are the accumulator of facts, and you're the one who's going to tell us what the truth is. So please try to do that. And if you want to read more about it, I think it is really pretty fascinating, but in a pretty quirky kind of way, I guess. Okay, another one. This is more generalized. I did see a little bit of this as well. Like, you don't want to draw your own conclusions about the claim based on your research. So, and that may sound a little surprising. When I say research here, I mean I want you to follow the Wikipedia mandate of not doing original research, which is you are going to look up research that someone else has done, and you're going to tell me what they said and tell me why you believe them. You're not going to do your own conclusion drawing based on, like, you're not going to go conduct a study about gun violence and then tell me the results of your study. Like, that's way beyond the scope of this article. So you're not doing that. But someone else has done that study, quote them, that's it. That's all you need to do. Also, don't look at a particular claim and think, well, obviously this is false, so it's false, right? I mean, because if someone has made this claim, they believe it for some reason, and for you to offer evidence to the contrary, you've really got to say why. And that can't just be because it's obviously false or something like that. If you remember, one of my big lessons from yesterday was don't trust your gut, or 2 days ago. Don't trust your gut, don't trust common sense, because these are the things that someone uses to manipulate you into believing or sharing fake news. So we have to all understand our tendency to be manipulated by our emotions, and that's what you're doing whether you realize it or not. If you just sort of look at a question and decide if it's true or false, you are not doing that. Instead, you should find an expert who has concluded yes or no, quote them, and tell me why you believe that their answer is the best one. So that's what you really should do. And I saw a lot of articles that didn't quite get there. So this is something that many of you need to work on. Okay, so let's see. Now my critiques can address many of those things that I've already talked about. So this is the point of the live stream, the lecture, where I will invite volunteers. So you can put your document link in Discord or Twitch if you'd like. And since Noah and Colin have both volunteered, I could dig yours up, I guess. But if you don't mind sharing your link, that would make it easy for me while I take a sip of my herbal tea. This is ginger turmeric tea. Maybe lemon too. I don't know. It's pretty good. All right. Great. So Noah has shared his. Okay, good. So thanks, Noah. And I'm going to try to protect your privacy as I talk about this, but obviously I've said your first name at least. I don't know if your last name appears on here, and I'm also going to try to hide, since Colin's name is showing up in those. I wonder if I can just hide the comments. Yeah, okay, so I see you're already in there editing it as I go, so that's good too. I wonder if I can hide, I'm just trying to see if I can hide comments because I don't want to, reveal other people's identities either. So, okay, we'll do it like that. Hopefully that's good enough. All right, so looking at a few things, as you're noting and as I think you're doing right now, you do want to, just left indent, right? Keep things all, or don't indent, just keep things all the way to the left. If you need more visual separation between paragraphs, you can do a couple of things. So you can do, let's actually make a paragraph break right here because that looks like a logical break anyway. And what you can do is actually two things. Like you can make the line break, make the line spacing not double, but like 1.5, and then put like an extra, just like an empty line between paragraphs. That's a pretty common way to do that. So if those things make sense to you, you can accept those changes as I've done. Okay, so your claim is actually sort of complicated, so it's pretty interesting actually to look at what your evidence is going to be. Did I know? Okay, yeah. So if you're on the document right now, you can also accept that change if you want to. Okay, so I'm going to give you kind of pretty, I guess, detailed copy editing advice, if that's all right. So chief claim, well, the claim itself is false. It does point to a few bigger issues. Correct. I think that's a good transition into this final section of this paper, or this article. So good. And I wonder if there's a more precise way to say this than point to. I mean, it does maybe resonate with a few bigger issues, or it does have a few important, there are a few issues that are important to acknowledge related to inequality, something like that. But I think that's probably fine. Grammatically though, this one, the first issue being, this is actually a sentence fragment. Well, it's close to a sentence. I mean, it's the way you phrased it, it sounds like a sentence fragment. So a stronger way to say this might be the first issue is racial inequality among races. I think that's what you meant, right? But when you say being, it sounds like it's a dependent clause on the thing that came before. So hey, good. Yeah, you're changing it so, as I speak. And so similarly, you got being down here. The other issue being housing, right? So okay. So your two sources, it seems, are the CDC and Fairfax County government, which is probably good. Now, you want to avoid first person. You've got some right here. There may be those of us who read the claim and looked further into it. Yeah, I'm not really sure what you mean by that, but it's really not necessary because we're not, again, we're trying to avoid this idea of us, like the idea of us as the narrators or the editors. Surely there's an example of someone making this claim, or there was at some point, in order for the CDC and for, in this case, Fairfax County to debunk it, right? I mean, they might not, I mean, their main role isn't a debunking organization, so they don't necessarily have the same motivation we do to try to share that origin. I don't know, I wonder what you've tried to search for, but I have some more advice too, but I wonder if, no, I'm not going to search for it. If I was thinking I could search for certain ethnic terms and COVID, but I'm sure I'm going to get a bunch of racist stuff, so I'm just going to leave that alone. Yeah, so I think there might be another way to do that. But anyway, see, I don't have examples, but I do think they must exist. So I think, see what you can find and keep looking. Okay, some more advice about the headings, right? So you don't need the quote marks because that's the title of your article. It's just that. and I want you to answer it right here. So like, it sounds like you're saying no, right? So that's really what you need for that. You should make these headings. So let's make this one not just having bold type and larger, but actually make it a heading. Use the actual structural elements of the document. So let's make that a heading 1, and make that also a heading 1, and then make these like heading 2. But I'm going to also recommend changes for these as well. So I would say, what is my template? I'm forgetting my template now. What my headings were. So some examples of this claim. That's what I'm looking for. Oh yeah, somebody's been messing with my template. But no, don't mess with my template. So it's not so much the introduction. What we want to see is we want to see some examples of this claim, and that sounds like what you're writing about down here. But you can just reorganize these if you'd like. I actually kind of like, there's sort of a pun in your title here, the spreading, but what we really want is some examples of this claim. I mean, because the spreading of information is kind of like the spreading of the disease. I mean, there's a nice little play on words there I think you're making, but that's not exactly what we mean. So really this is the background that you've provided here. And then I like this idea, the bigger picture. But really what we want to know is evidence. I mean, I think these are good things that are actually part of your background. So after you move this examples section up higher, then I think this would be a good continuation of the discussion you started in the background part there. But I want you to make sure to include this evidence. Okay, so how do you actually know this? So you've got links here, and you've got the CDC. I think they're pretty good, but you also want to say as much as you can, like, how does the CDC know this? And they probably tell you at some point. So they're talking about health. Okay, so this looks like a pretty generalized statement about increased risks, and that's good. Discrimination, yeah, this looks like some of the things you're talking about in the just in the background section. Yeah, so I'm not going to have time to look at this whole thing right now, but one thing you want to do is like click these links and look at these footnotes, because there might be not just the CDC, but an actual like study that they're citing, and that's usually what they do, is that they'll look at actual medical research and then tell you it. I mean, the CDC does its own research too, but most of the time what they're doing in this case is explaining best practices and drawing conclusions from other research. And so as much as possible, you want to go to the original research and make sure it makes sense. I mean, I think you can trust the CDC to be fairly neutral in terms of what they're talking about and how they summarize that research. But you want to say that as much as possible that you've gone up the stream in this sense as well as going up the stream in terms of finding the source of a claim. So yeah, I think this is overall looking like in pretty good shape. I especially like the bigger picture discussion, the way that you're including that. But see if you can find specific examples, and if you can find a specific statement from the CDC that directly rebuts that claim, that would be a great bit of evidence to include there. So yeah, a little bit more work on this probably, but not too much. I think it's looking good. Okay, yeah, so Noah did ask a question. Should you use MLA citations? Yeah, please do use MLA style citations if you can. Yeah, and honestly, MLA is not that important really in this case. You just use a citation style, but I'm most familiar with MLA. That's what I usually use. So that's what I'd recommend. I don't have my MLA t-shirt on today, but sometimes I do have a MLA t-shirt on. I have been a member of the Modern Language Association. My membership is not current at the moment, but I've been to their convention many years and served on a committee for them for a few years. So I'm a fan of the organization. Okay, great. So let's take a look. Colin has shared his article as well, so I'm going to take a look at it and see if that makes sense, or see if I can offer any suggestions. All right. So looking at this, one thing I see is I don't see any other comments on it. So maybe people have made comments and Colin's already resolved them, or it could be that there are opportunities for more of you to leave comments on these. So let's do this. Let me offer a couple of suggestions. Like again, I'm going to be making these in here, and they will show up to you as suggested edits, and you're welcome to accept them if they make sense. I'm going to make this just like straight up a heading, and then make this also a straight up heading one. But I think no is probably more direct just by itself, and then underneath that maybe just add the statement of the fact as you found, which is this, and make that just a regular paragraph, right? So Hopefully that makes sense. Yeah, so you've got some examples here. I wonder if there's any way, something's happening with your kind of image layout. I wonder if we can clean that up a little bit. Okay. Yeah, I think this is a claim that you will find lots of medical misinformation about. I don't know. This is the whole thing. I mean, a lot of times you Google certain health claims, you will find lots and lots of web pages making these claims. I did find several making this claim. It looks like you did as well. But also like sort of magical food-based cures to diseases is something you'll see a lot. And I have had some stomach issues the last few days, and so I've been Googling for things, and I keep seeing things about cabbage juice, and so I made my own cabbage juice, and but then I looked back on some of those things that I learned, those things where I learned about cabbage juice from, and realized that they were advocating for cabbage juice as part of, and also alongside of, thinking about this overall alkaline diet idea, which I guess is like baking soda is an alkaline. I mean, it's a base as in like opposite of acid, and so people are arguing that if you eat more kind of basic stuff or alkaline stuff, you'll have better health because it'll counteract the things going on in your stomach. It occurred to me though, like your stomach is already acidic, so if you're eating like baking soda, isn't that going to make your stomach into like one of those volcano demo things where you put vinegar and baking soda and it erupts? Like, so am I going to be making my stomach into like a volcano? That sounds terrible. So I haven't tried to ingest pure baking soda, but I've tried the cabbage juice, and it was terrible. It was like I can drink a lot of things, but it's not just like juiced cabbage. It's supposed to be fermented. So I let it ferment for 3 days. Oh boy, it was bad. And it did not help my stomach issues really, other than I felt sort of sick after drinking that. So, and I kept like burping cabbage juice for the rest of the day. So, not recommended. Anyway, although maybe I didn't do enough, right? I mean, the regimen I saw said to drink 8 ounces before every meal. And I was like, I could barely get down, I guess it was like 4 ounces, and it was rough. So anyway. So I like to just kind of skimming this. I'm seeing this for the first time, but I'm seeing a lot of citations, which is great. And looking down here, I'm seeing a lot of like you're citing the sources, which is good. It looks like you're naming your reviewers, so that's great. So you've had some input from them that has helped you do this. I'm glad we were able to find this this trend thing. That's pretty interesting. And looking at that graph, I think there is a really interesting arc to that graph. The way it goes up. Well, I can't reach over that far, but it goes up around 2015 or so, 2015, 16, and then it dives down. It looks like the Google search has added a couple of things on it. So one thing I would recommend about this screenshot, Colin, is crop out everything that you don't need. And you can do that after you've embedded it if you right-click on it. I don't know if you can see the right-click on here, but yeah, it looks like you can. And you select crop, and then you can just drag it over to the part you want to crop. But you want to crop out your other tabs and your desktop stuff. Or, if possible, even kind of you just kind of isolate the information that you think is the most important about that. You don't want to include the desktop. Sometimes that kind of thing can, there's nothing embarrassing here, but sometimes if you have something up different in other tabs and you share a screenshot of those other tabs, it can be accidentally kind of embarrassing. Okay, so let me take a look at your actual writing. I have not actually done that yet. I think that's a very straightforward, very good statement there. Yeah, good. So this is interesting. I wonder if you can learn more about this, Dr. Tullio Simoncini. You say now deleted. I wonder what it was deleted from. Like, was it? There's a bit of context that I'm curious about here that I think would be interesting, right? So if you could find, like, was it published on a website or on a journal? You say deleted, so that kind of implies that it was published and somehow endorsed at some point. So I'm wondering if that endorsement was retracted, if that makes sense. Yeah, okay. So you want to put a space there. Okay, so I wonder if there's a way to reorganize this sentence a bit here. Great. Looks like you found a great rebuttal of this claim, so this is good. I mean, that's what I need. I'm wondering, your statement about the CDC and the American Cancer Society seems a little strange. I wonder if, I mean, the American Cancer Society is, I mean, they've been around for a while, certainly before 2017. I mean, this article seems to be, okay, that seems like you're getting on the date there. It seems like you're queuing on the date here from this article, but I wonder if, I mean, I really think I don't know that you need this really, because I feel like the American Cancer Society does have a really good reputation, and just, I mean, the fact that you're citing their study here and you've provided the link, and you've also got multiple studies, I think that's great. So I think, I don't know if you need that statement. Oh, well, you just deleted it. Okay, that's fine too. I was gonna say you might be able to work that in some other way too, but this sounds pretty interesting. Yeah, I wonder. So I think this is great. I think it's nice and straight to the point. I mean, if there, and I haven't read through everything exactly. I don't know if I mean, you seem to put sentences together pretty well, so I haven't read it in a kind of line by line way. But the I wonder if, you know, it might be worth adding something about the bigger context of miracle cures and all the different things that allegedly can cure cancer if you do some Googling, or if you rely on Dr. Google to diagnose or treat your cancer. So yeah, I think there's a bigger kind of industry around this kind of health misinformation that is probably worth at least referencing to some extent. And that might be where this context could be, that like where the context of this original paper came from. And also, I'm curious about, in your trend search here, like what happened around 2015 or so, whenever these started going down. Maybe there's some discussion there about different, like sometimes you'd have, different websites will be taken offline, or certain results are actually suppressed by Google. So that might have been one of those interventions. And it looks like there's a note there on the Google search thing. So maybe that's something that would give you that context. So that would be interesting to add to that if you'd like. The other thing, so it looks like you cropped out part of this image, but your desktop is still visible there. So you might want to crop that out too. But I think, well, I don't know, maybe you can reposition, but like the heading I thought was useful too, to show what this is a graph of on the Google Trend thing. By the way, if anyone else is trying to do this, let me just put it up right here. Google Trends is fascinating and can be really fun. Let's see, I don't know if this was your query, but let's try it. And okay, for the past 12 months, it's not really had much. This does not look like this does not look like the same graph as yours. So what was your query? Yeah, I think you had your query in the original screenshot, but I don't see it now. So let me see. I'm trying to recreate your results. Let me see. Let's try a more generic one. Okay, that's different, but it has the same hump as yours. Baking soda cancer cure. Okay. Okay, yeah, there you go. Yeah, mine looks a little different. I think maybe the time range was the difference, but and by the way, what it does when it does like the up and down, like the 100 and the 0 are not like absolute numbers. Like it's not like there were 100 people or like 100% of people were looking for it at that point, but that within the range defined by the scope of the set of people. So the set of people were like I guess sort of the bandwidth of the people searching, the intensity, that's when it was at its highest. And so that's just a way of saying it, by it being 100 in August 2014, or June 2014, that's the highest it got in that, like relative to February 2005 when there was 0. Yeah, and doesn't mean no one was searching for it. It just means that relative to how many people were searching later, and then rounded to the nearest integer, I guess. So let's see, what does this note say? Oh, this is just saying that their data collection system was changed. Okay, that doesn't really tell you much about this. I wonder, sometimes it's interesting to search for terms together. And yeah, this term being much more generic is so much more popular that it's really hard to compare them, because it just really spikes way above and below. But I wonder if we just did baking soda? I don't know. Really, the thing you can do here is you can start to extrapolate by comparison, but comparison doesn't necessarily do much to help you with this. But I guess if you really wanted to get into this, like this would be kind of next level research with this, right? Is go into like news archives and figure out, did something significant happen around 2015 that led people to stop searching for this? Like, was there some major like you cite the study from 2009, but I wonder if there was further studies or information that came out about it that just led people to stop checking in that time period. You might go back into a Google News search and you can sort down. You can do in Google News, you can do the same thing I was showing you yesterday with searching for results within a particular time frame. So you might try that and see if you can come up with that. But that that's really kind of getting to the point of like original research, and so that might be a bit far beyond what we're doing here. Okay, so I think this one's looking really good. I think it's also, it's relevant. It's interesting. It's relevant to my recent search results, actually, because I also have been advised by different websites that I've been coming across that I should be consuming more baking soda, which I'm not planning to. Okay, so are there any other volunteers? So that was Colin and Noah, so thanks for letting me talk about your articles for a little bit. Those look like they're both pretty far along, so especially Colin's here. But there were several more that I looked through that needed some more work, but I'm not going to pull them up on screen unless you give me permission. So if you are watching and you don't mind, I would love to take a look at your articles, but I'm not going to unless you tell me I can. So, but I can also go in, and if I see really major things, I'm going to go in and comment on them too, just like looking the same way your peers are. Remember, you're trying to do this for at least 2 of your peers, right? So if you haven't done that yet, please do that. But when I say at least 2, that doesn't mean stop at 2. So if you see them up there and you see an issue that you think you have an idea for, then by all means, let them know. Right? Don't be shy about giving someone advice, because it'll help their paper be stronger, or their article be more successful at doing what it needs to do. Okay, so seeing a lot of people online, but you aren't volunteering, and that's okay. I'm not gonna force it. All right. So I have a few more thoughts about your other things to do this week, and I'll share those as I'm doing this. If you decide you want to share your paper and have me critique it on the stream, then you can certainly do that. But I have a few more thoughts just to kind of wrap things up here. As you're thinking about the end of this week and reflecting on your work, since I am kind of asking for 3 different reflection type things, maybe 4 depending on how you count, I thought it might be useful for me to just clarify what things you should be looking at for each of these and give you some kind of questions to answer or some things to kind of work for. So as you think about this web literacy project, right? So you've learned about a particular topic, obviously, a particular question. But the bigger picture is understanding the information landscape of the web, where information comes from, where news comes from, where fake news comes from, and how it circulates. And I hope that you've learned about this, and I hope that it's been interesting. I find it fascinating, actually, but I also find it like really common sense too. Ultimately, once you kind of learn some of the terminology and know what you're looking for, it is very easy to very quickly debunk a lot of things. And I think that's one of the things that you might have been a little almost frustrated by in the beginning parts of this assignment, because many of you were looking for some claim to debunk, but you found everything's been debunked already. What I hope that leads you to think is that whenever you see something on social media that sounds fishy, it's very easy to find out whether that's been debunked or not. You can simply Google it, and if you find a Snopes article or a fact check article or whatever, and there's a bunch of sites that do this, there's your answer right there. Or if you see an image that looks fishy, you can do the reverse image search and find out, what is the original context for this. And I gave you a couple of, the other day when I was having you all work on that on Discord, I had a hard time, I was trying to come up with one that would be hard, but I couldn't find any that were hard, because they're all so easy, because you can just do the reverse image search. So, it's the one thing is it's very easy to find out where something comes from on the web. And I think that as a citizen of the web, as a citizen communicating on the web and participating in these platforms, it's up to us to help resist the platform-centric habits that these companies have led us to take for granted, and instead, stop the spread of this misinformation. So sometimes that has to do with not sharing something, and sometimes it has to do with actually replying to someone when you see it posted and saying, hey, this is wrong, or this is bad information. That can be uncomfortable. I've only done it a couple times. Usually when I see it on Facebook, I'll just unfollow that person so I stop seeing stuff from them. But sometimes every now and then I'm just like, this is actually false, and here's why. And it's not like I have this secret knowledge. It's that I just applied my common sense and my, fact-checking tools and skills to say, we actually know what this is, and here it is. It's not this thing that you think it is. Yeah, Colin and Noah, you all were working really hard on that image of the swan and the photographer and the swan. I don't know. I don't have the source for that. And I think Colin, you found the original post where Mike Caulfield talked about that image and found it himself, and that's the closest to a source any of us have, or that I've ever found, which is that he thinks he remembers seeing it on a Latvian photo forum of some sort. But whether or not that was the original source is also unclear. And also I've asked him about this more recently, and he can't find it anymore. So it's also a mystery, which is, I think nice. I think it's nice that there are some questions that we don't know the answer to sometimes, right? So it's not always easy. The fact that it's not always easy sort of reminds us that, hey, we need to pay attention and do our best to figure things out. The other thing too that I hope you take away from this, I don't have a dot for this, but just because we're training you in being critical of media, especially things you see on the web, this does not mean, and I don't want you to take from this assignment the fact that the idea that you should question everything, that you should be like anything you see on the line is fake and everything's a lie and all that. That's not true. There is good information on the web, and we can tell the difference between good information and bad information. And hopefully the skills that you've learned by reading the textbook and following the stuff in the lectures has helped you develop that sense, right? I think sometimes people overcorrect after this assignment. They think, oh, everything's fake and I have to take everything apart. But that's not the case, right? We can trust a lot of things, but we can't trust other things. And understanding how to tell the difference, that's what we mean by web literacy, is being able to respond to these things. So I'm kind of rambling, but these are some thoughts that I'd like for you to try to address as you reflect on your work for the web literacy project. Okay, for the digital culture, just another reminder, the video that you create is 60 to 90 seconds, share it in Discord, and that video is not for me, it's for your peers, so that your peers can learn what you did and learn from what you learned, and that's it. Just a couple of things to throw out just in case you're kind of struggling with what to say there. What is the most surprising thing you learned? That's often a good way to talk about, like to get you kind of interested in something. And if your project involves something technical, what was the most challenging part of that? And especially if it's a challenging thing that you worked through and you found a solution to. Those are always really good kind of reflection comments to have. Okay, so that's for the digital culture module. And then finally, the weekly reflection and report. It is sort of the big meta thing. This is sort of your catalog or your inventory of learning for the week. So tell me about and summarize everything you did this week. And so that's not just the assignments, but the lectures and watching the streams or whatever, reading the textbook, participating in activities in Discord or on the different Google Docs that we did. All those added up together are what I mean by the work of this week. And so, how did it go? What did you do? And what was the most? You could talk about things that were the most interesting or whatever. But ultimately, I do want you to tell me what grade you feel you've earned this week. Now, a grade is I haven't given you my whole lecture about how I feel about grading, but letter grades are a convoluted and problematic and arbitrary way of thinking about learning. I don't like to assign letter grades myself, but I know that it's a way that you might think of and might be used to thinking in terms of your work. And so it's a way for you to tell me how you feel like you've been doing on a scale of F to A, I guess. I do unfortunately have to give you a letter grade at the end of the semester. I mean, I don't mind doing it. I'm just saying that it's unfortunate because that letter grade does not comprise my assessment of your learning or anything about your learning really necessarily. But it is something to think about and gives you a bit of traction as you're trying to talk about differences, and I think that's okay. I think that part's fine. All right, so this is the end of the slideshow. Speaking of grades, by the way, I'm going to be working today and tomorrow on grading everything from last week and responding to that, so look for that coming through. The way I like to do grading is video, so I'll record videos and post them in your comments as a comment on your submissions in Canvas. So probably just one that will address all of the things together, like one for each of you, obviously. Okay, well, I think that's all I have, unless anyone has changed their mind about sharing their document so that I can edit it. I'm just scrolling back to see if I missed anyone. I don't think so. Okay, so I'm going to wrap this up. If you have any final quick questions, let me know. I heard some thunder just now, so perhaps we are going to get a little bit of rain. I guess we'll find out. Okay, well, with that, let me switch to the outro scene. And oh wait, so Morning Paul has a question. Do not submit anything in Canvas, only Discord. How will that work? I'm not sure what you mean. You should be submitting something in Canvas sometimes. Let me go back. Well, actually, let me jump back to this slide here. Sometimes you're sharing things in Discord, but for each like set of things you're doing, there's something shared in Canvas, and it's usually that reflection statement. So for week 1, it was your Hello World blog post and your reflection on your creativity module and your weekly reflection and report. So that should be it's similar to this week. There should be 3 things in Canvas from week 1, and all 3 of those things are kind of reflection sort of things. And there are other things that you should be doing in Discord, and then talking about in those reflections that you submit in Canvas, if it makes sense. Sorry, it's so many steps. But so please do go ahead and do that. I'm sure you did it on time. I'm sure it's fine. Just go ahead and do that. You can it'll show up as late, obviously, in Canvas because it just looks at the date that you actually submitted it. But I'll still take it. It's fine. I mean, I haven't graded anything yet, so you haven't missed anything. So go ahead and please do resubmit that. I did notice looking at the numbers that it seemed that there were a few missing, but I assumed that was the case because it seemed like I assumed that people were in your situation where they did it on Discord or on their blog, but they forgot to submit it in Canvas. Which is, easy to do. So I don't mind if you need to resubmit it or do it late. Okay, so hopefully that answers your question. I am going to wrap this up and go see if it's going to start raining. And I will be back. Oh yeah, just to tell you, next week will be different. I'm not going to be streaming on, not doing anything on Monday because it's the holiday. But then on Tuesday of next week and Wednesday, probably instead of streaming, I'll probably just post a pre-recorded video because I'll be on a little vacation. But I'll be online. I just won't have this set up for being online. So I'll probably just pre-record a video and post that on Tuesday and Wednesday to introduce and talk about our big topics for next week and assignments and projects. Kind of like before, it's going to be, one, actually maybe a little bit less next week. It's going to be one big project and not a module, but just a big project next week. So we'll talk about that, or I'll talk about that next week, I guess. All right, well, that's it for today then. I'll be online on and off this afternoon. If you see me online in the office hours, feel free to drop in. Or if you just see me online, with the green dot, feel free to start up a chat if you'd like. Happy to help. And I am happy to take a look at some of these articles. If you'd like, we could even just do a one-on-one video conference and take a look at it together if that would help. I'm here to help if I can. Okay, everyone. So I will, in fact, switch over to the music now and wish you all a good afternoon. And I will see you all next week. Bye.